Welcome. My name is Kim Lewis, and I'm part of the webinar team here at Good Technology, and I'm pleased to be your moderator for today's webinar, Making Enterprise Mobility Work, Apps and Data, Fast, Simple, and Secure. Before we begin, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. In the upper left-hand corner of your screen, you can find a list of resources related to today's topic. Below that is our Q&A widget. All phone lines are muted, and so please post your questions here, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. In the dock located at the bottom of the screen are other handy tools, including an option to contact us or share a link to this webinar. I'd also like to direct your attention to the Twitter widget, where you can share your thoughts about today's webinar or follow the conversation happening on Twitter. As a follow-up to today's live presentation, a PDF version of this will be sent to you as a recording and made available to all webinar registrants. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's speakers. We are pleased to welcome Jeff Tonkel, Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Splashtop. Joining Jeff today is John Dasher, Good Technology's Senior Director of Products. Click on the caret under their photos to read their full bios. Jeff and John, we are so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you, Kim. Well, let's dive right in. We got a lot to talk about today, and we're pleased to have Splashtop here with us to talk about using good dynamics from a developer's perspective, as well as give us a little showtime and show us what Splashtop's capable of. You know, sometimes when talking about enterprise mobility, it's helpful to have a framework in mind to think about how enterprises tend to approach the problem. We see most enterprises getting involved in mobility as their employees bring devices in and want to be able to get access to their email, their calendar, their contacts. And so device management systems definitely showed up in the enterprises, beginning as long as about 4 or 5 years ago. We see this as a pretty tactical response to a very reasonable need. Over time, employees figure out that, in order to really be productive, they also need access to documents. And so being able to do some form of content management where they can get at files and documents on their SharePoints and other servers becomes pretty important. And it's also about this time where folks start exploring other commercially available apps to help them get their jobs done. At the end of the day, we all know that people just want to get their jobs done, do a good job, and they tend to be pretty creative in how they do it. Finally, we start to see companies getting pretty strategic about how they approach enterprise mobility. They start to use mobility in ways that are different from merely porting existing processes and existing apps to mobile, but rather using mobile devices in new and unique ways that truly transform the business. We start to see specialized multi-app workflows where different applications are kind of chained together in order to solve problems. And we're also beginning to see enterprises think about how to engage with business partners. People that work with you but not for you sometimes create special challenges in terms of making apps and data available. So as we think about this kind of a framework, let's do a little practice survey here and get the audience involved. We'd like to ask you to think about your organization and think about whether your organization is in the run, grow, or transform stages of mobile maturity. We'll give you a couple moments to click on the widget. We'll have a couple survey questions throughout the webinar today just to kind of keep folks participating. It's always better when it's a two-way conversation. And, of course, at the end, we'll also have our Q&A session. But let's get you to estimate where you folks fall into the spectrum. And by the way, multiple answers are allowed. This isn't a linear type of relationship. We often see IT pursuing the run area, the tactical, let's get our employees access to their email, their calendar, their contacts. Meanwhile, out in sales and marketing, we see those guys often pursuing solutions that help drive revenue out in the transform area. And so it's certainly possible. We often see folks in multiple categories. So take just a moment, select the area that represents your organization, and we'll share the results back out. It's always interesting to see how our peers are faring. Okay, another 15 seconds or so, and we'll keep moving right along. Okay, getting the final answers in. Sounds like a game show, doesn't it? Okay, Let's take a look at the results. Okay, interesting. So this is very interesting. We've often seen the bulk of folks in the run area, and certainly as time has moved forward in the last 12 months especially, we've seen the grow area increase in use. What's interesting here is that this might be the highest I've seen transform. That's super exciting. Certainly the transformative applications tend to be the ones that get a lot of press, and because they're new and they're novel and they're solving new problems. Speaking of problems, I think one of the things that characterizes enterprise mobility as we think about it today is that there's not one problem set. As we move beyond small pilots where we're handling the needs of a largely homogeneous group of folks, providing them access to certain services, as we think about rolling out across the enterprise, what quickly becomes apparent is not only do we have a myriad of device types, operating systems, applications, but we have different types of users in different geographies trying to solve different problems. And so it's no longer about just taking an off-the-shelf piece of software and rolling it out and solving everybody's problem, but rather thinking through the technologies that are needed to really deploy mobility enterprise-wide. Certainly, mobile device management, or MDM, was a very popular technology to roll out, largely so IT could continue to maintain their risk and compliance posture, ensure governance, make sure that in the event that a device was lost or stolen, they had the capabilities of locking or wiping that device. And of course, as I mentioned a few times now, access to email, secure browser access for accessing the corporate intranet, tends to be right in there. And then moving into content management, being able to access file servers to access documents and data. And then we also start to see enterprises creating their own custom applications. I think, based on the survey results we just saw, clearly you folks are out there creating custom applications. And, if there is a truism, the moment you create your first application, as exciting as it is, you're faced with a challenge. How do I get it out to people? And so, immediately we start to see folks start to think about, having their own enterprise app store as an easy way to make applications available to their users. Over on the high maturity side, increasingly, service and support management become important. As I mentioned earlier, it's one thing to run a pilot. You can probably get away with a single full-time employee handling a couple thousand people in a pilot deployment. But as you start to think about rolling out mobility to 20,000 or 50,000 users, you start to think about how you're going to staff that engagement from a human capital perspective, as well as the technologies that are needed. And so we need two things. We need to be able to use these technologies in such a way that doesn't require us to, in a linear way, add additional personnel for every 2,000, 5,000 people we add to the system. We need something that scales, something that provides visibility from the carrier all the way down to the device. And so you'll continue to see service and support management be really important. A mobility platform is critical here. The platform truly enables all of these technologies not only to exist together, but to truly interoperate and be integrated, to make it easy to deploy, easy to manage, and easy to scale. Even the largest enterprises, can't roll out everything instantaneously. And so having the ability to do a rollout, to scale, to add both different technologies as well as different applications is truly important. So the way good technology approaches the problem is we start off, as you might guess, with a platform, the Good Dynamics Secure Mobility Platform. This platform provides developers a great way to incorporate security and shared services into their applications. And in those cases where you need a quick way to get applications onto the platform, app wrapping, where you don't even need to do any source code modification. You just take the existing IPA file, drag, drop, and you've got a wrapped application capable of not only being protected from a security perspective, but being managed from an IT perspective. Of course, you're going to want to manage those apps. You want to make them available through your enterprise app store, apply policy, who has access to the apps, whether or not they're allowed to use functions like cut, copy, and paste. And analytics. Analytics are becoming a really exciting area. For the first time, we're able to get quantitative information to see who's using which application and how often. These questions are allowing enterprises to make more informed decisions about further investment. We're also seeing enterprises even use analytics for things like A/B testing of two different versions of the same app to see which feature implementation is a better path. And then again, as I mentioned, mobility management, being able to have the service management, the support management, and of course the device management that IT needs to roll these things out. So we start off with our platform, and on top of the platform we have our Good Collaboration Suite. These are the collaboration apps that provide all the core services that employees need to collaborate. Of course, you have email, calendar, contacts, secure web browsing, MDM, as well as secure instant messaging and access to documents, access to your SharePoint servers, your network-attached storage, being able to sync files so that when I pick up my tablet, it's got the same files as I have on my smartphone. And perhaps most importantly, we have our ISV and partner ecosystem. Good has been building a really robust collection of enterprise ISV partners who have been making some incredible applications available on the Good Secure Dynamics platform. Not to be shadowed, of course, are the custom applications that enterprises are creating. In fact, in the last 12 months alone, Good's customers have created over 700 new applications on the Good Dynamics Secure Mobility platform. And one of the reasons for this is App Kinetics. App Kinetics, if you will, is kind of the super highway that connects all these things together. Whether you have an application that you've purchased from Good Technology, you've created yourself, or you've purchased from a commercial independent software vendor, App Kinetics allows all of these applications to securely share documents and data. It's a unique capability to Good Technology. From an architectural perspective, Good operates a network operating center that's your own private cloud that allows these apps to access back-end services without you having to build out your DMZ and further compromise your security there. Unlike some of the competitive solutions that have independent VPNs on a per-app basis, while that's functional, that also would end up requiring you to build out your VPN concentrators and whatnot. And so we've kind of eschewed that path for the Good path. All the apps are containerized using FIPS validated encryption. And it's really a very nice way to be able to deploy this technology without having to modify your existing infrastructure in any real way. So I mentioned secure multi-app workflows earlier, and I'm going to give you a real simple example that I think really illustrates the point. What we're able to do now is we're able to take someone like an insurance adjuster, someone who normally would carry a ruggedized laptop, a camera, a binder full of forms, and go out and talk to a client, get all the relevant information about an incident, and then have to go back to headquarters, file the paperwork, wait for approvals, then finally get a check cut and physically sent to the customer. We've got customers today that have taken a collection of commercially available apps on the Good Dynamics platform and solved this problem in a way that really impacts their business in a positive way. The adjuster now goes out to the customer with their tablet. They're able to take a picture of the damage that, in this particular case, an auto accident. They're able to securely take that photograph, have it be completely encrypted on their device. They're able to access their SharePoint server at headquarters, download the appropriate form for that type of incident, be able to use a product like iAnnotate to complete the form, attach the photograph that they took, and using a product like DocuSign Inc. allow the customer to legally sign the completed form right there on the spot. And then they're able to submit that completed form to headquarters. A copy goes to the customer. And what this does is two things, two really important things. It allows the field service representative to be more productive. Frankly, they're able to handle more customers in a given workday. The customer's thrilled because they now get a check faster than they did before because the process happens faster than it did before. And so we're seeing this type of similar occurrence in many different industries, financial, healthcare, manufacturing, etc., where both the employees become more productive and the corporation's customers become happier and more satisfied. User experience is critical when rolling mobility out to your customers. In most cases, your customers are your end users, they're your employees, they're your business partners. We want to make sure that even things that are invisible are thought through. For example, single sign-on. It's one thing to roll out a series of applications to your end users, but for every application, if they have to log in separately, the user experience isn't all that great. And if there's anything I've learned over the last decade of doing security implementations, the second you adversely affect the user experience, users often start looking for ways around the system. It's not that they're malicious, they're just looking to get their job done. And so you don't want to do anything that adversely impacts their productivity. Again, we just talked about secure data communication across apps, a unique feature that allows apps to share documents and data with each other without ever having to do so in unencrypted form. And of course, being able to leverage shared services. The Good Dynamics Secure Mobility Platform allows developers to take advantage of services that other developers have provided. And so if you think about it, being able to create a custom enterprise application where you're able to implement a service like printing or access to SharePoint without having to write any of that code yourself by simply embedding a print button in your application and pointing it at the other application, you're able to add features to your app very quickly from a developer perspective. And from the end user perspective, they're able to use these features without having to leave your new custom app. So it's a win-win both on the developer productivity side as well as the end user experience side. We continue to drive towards enabling a demonstrably better business experience for both IT and the end user. All right, let's have another survey here. I'm really curious, especially given the last survey that we did where so many people were in the transform stage. Think about how many custom mobile apps your business has developed and deployed. Let's just take a moment here. We'll do it just like last time. This should be a single choice only. Have you just started experimenting? Perhaps you've got one application that your business has developed and employed. Maybe you've got a couple and you're getting a little bit more systemic about it. Many of our customers, especially the larger enterprises, seem to be in the last 6 months in that kind of 6 to 12 range. But we certainly talk to large enterprises that have more than a dozen custom apps developed and deployed. We typically see enterprises in this area really think through how they're approaching mobility across the enterprise. They've often created a mobile center of excellence where they have cross-functional representation of everyone from development, security, IT, legal, really an interesting overlay, if you will, to help mobility take root in the organization. All right, let's just take another 20 seconds or so here and finish the question, and we'll roll out the results. I often find this stuff very interesting to see where people are in their deployment. For a long time, of course, when MDM first showed up, everyone was talking about creating apps. Everyone was busy working on learning how to create apps, but the numbers of apps that were actually deployed were rather small. And I think that's one of the exciting things about our guest here today, Splashtop, is they really help get the needed applications out to the enterprise. So let's just see where we are. I'm going to go to the results here. Okay, so about 40% of you don't yet have a custom mobile app rolled out. Very interesting. Always interesting webinar to webinar to see the results. So yeah, as I expected, the more than 12 was a rather modest 7.6%. In the 6 to 12 range, we had another 7.6%, so pretty evenly divided there. And then the bulk of folks in the kind of 1 to 5 range. So people getting started, which is really interesting. I don't think there's folks that would argue the utility of having these apps available, but certainly, custom app development can take time. And sometimes it's not possible at all for a variety of reasons. We'd like to bring Jeff in to join the conversation and talk a little bit about their experience in doing an application on the Good Dynamics platform, as well as showcase some of the capabilities their Splashtop product has. Jeff?
Great. Thanks, John. And good day, everybody. So first let's talk about why Splashtop for good. When you think about Splashtop, Splashtop is remote rendering technology that was designed specifically for remote application access. And so what we have is using remote rendering technology is the perfect mobility solution for non-mobilized apps and data. So if you're just going to remotely render an app, and give your users a great user interface to be able to control that app from a mobile device, you can make that application available to your end users with zero coding. You don't have to recode anything. Zero training. They're going to use the application the same way that they've always used it, but in a different form factor on a different device. There's no waiting. We've made it easy to install the Splashtop architecture so that you can provide that application to your users in hours, if not just a day. And there's no data leakage, because when you remotely render, you're really playing a video of the application going in one direction, and then you're driving a control channel, maybe with a keyboard or with your finger touch on a gesture on a tablet to drive the application from the mobile device. So it's a great, like I said, it's just a great, perfect solution for non-mobilized applications and data. In addition, when you integrate with Good, then now you already have the Good NOC and you have the Good proxy providing that secure channel from your mobile devices back into behind your firewall, and we go straight through the Good NOC and through the Good proxy to provide application access in a highly secure manner. Next, there's single sign-on. We've done some integration in single sign-on. When you log into the Good client, then you immediately have access to Splashtop without logging in again, and we're going to continue to improve that as we move forward so you get complete single sign-on. And finally, if you think about remote access technology, there's a lot of remote access technology out there. As we'll talk about later, we even have millions of users already using Splashtop that are not really controlled by your IT organization. When you use Splashtop for Good, your IT organization can now say, I want to have Splashtop be my remote access technology. I'm going to identify which users get to use it, and maybe even I'm going to identify which devices that I'm going to allow them to use for remote access.
And Jeff, just to be clear, your solution not only works for applications that the enterprise may have developed, but it works for all those applications that they've purchased licenses to.
Exactly. ISVs, custom developed applications, and maybe even custom modified independent software applications.
Outstanding.
Yeah. So let's take a look at what we did to actually take the Splashtop application and make it available in the Good Dynamics platform. First of all, we had one developer who was very familiar with our client technology. That developer went ahead, registered as part of the Good development program, went ahead and downloaded the docs, took advantage of downloading the SDK, took advantage of the forums. The next thing that happened is we went ahead and we downloaded the technology that we needed. We downloaded the SDK, we downloaded a version of Good Control and Good Proxy, and then we went ahead and installed those components, so we had a version of Good Controller and Good Proxy that we could test with. Next, we went ahead and had code to be developed as part of integrating with the SDK. There is sample code that's also provided to you. So you're really getting going. My developer tells me that he was able to really leverage the sample code that was available to you, was able to leverage that sample code, integrate, and then test the integration with the Good Dynamics platform. And then finally, you go through the Veracode scan that'll point out maybe some security issues. You take care of whatever may be the critical issues, those security issues, and finally submit and publish the application. When you think about how long it took that one developer to finish his work, the actual time to market was about 5 weeks to take the entire Splashtop client and integrate it in the Good Dynamics platform. Authorization took us about a day. To integrate with the Good NOC and Good Proxy took us anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. Doing the auto configuration, depending upon how much you want to accomplish, can take 1 to several days. And the secure file system, depending upon how much you want to use. If you're just going to go ahead and take the user's credentials and store them in the Good file system, that can be done very simply, maybe in a couple hours. But if you're going to take more configuration data and store it in the Good secure file system, obviously it can take longer. Next, what we're going to do is go ahead and complete single sign-on. We're going to integrate with the notifications infrastructure, and we're going to take advantage of the app-to-app communication. So let's back up a second. Here's an interesting study when you think about how people are really mobilizing existing applications. There's a study that was recently done, a survey from CompTIA. They did an enterprise mobility survey, and it was only back in April, so it's not very long ago. And they found out when people are thinking about mobilizing existing applications, 49% of them are thinking about virtualizing or virtual desktop, exploring implementations using virtual desktop technology. 29% of the people are really looking at, okay, I'm going to build a custom app. When we looked at the survey, it looks like most of the low number probably of applications that have been really mobilized is because you're thinking about, I've really got to rewrite the app. I've really got to refactor it, restructure it. It's a lot of work. If it had been a lot easier, I think, to do, you'd see the number of apps that would be mobilized, the number would be much larger. And then finally, some people are looking about just changing the UI and maybe webizing the application, putting it in the cloud and giving people access to the app via browser. So let's think about all these applications just to remind you, because I think you know this really well. Let's remind you about this long tail of existing applications. We spoke earlier about maybe on the left-hand side of this scale where you have these major independent software vendor applications like SAP or Oracle. They have large install bases. They're huge apps. Maybe only a part of them have actually been mobilized. And we find that some of our customers actually want to mobilize part of the app that hasn't been mobilized by the ISV. As you move farther down the scale, you get smaller independent software vendors that really don't have the resources to mobilize the application. They've got the same problem you do. They have to refactor the entire app to mobilize it, and so those applications may not be mobilized ever or maybe not for a very long time. So we end up with this spectrum of shrink-wrapped applications from ISVs. Sometimes the shrink-wrapped application maybe even got customized. You customized it, and when the vendor went ahead and mobilized part of the app, if you were to go with that mobilized version of the application, you've got to upgrade and you're going to lose your customizations. So that's an issue for you as well. And then finally, we've talked to some customers that have upwards of 7,000 applications they've written in-house. I can't imagine any development organization in any reasonable time is going to get to the bottom half of those 7,000 applications, maybe even the bottom 80%. So again, mobilizing applications using remote rendering is an excellent, easy way to do it. One of the things that people have been talking about, as we mentioned in the survey, is virtual desktop is a way to mobilize applications. And I just want to back up a second here. Virtual desktop has been around for a long time. It was really not designed to mobilize apps. It was designed for IT to get control of their desktops, to bring them in-house, be able to manage them easily, be able to control them, be able to provide a high security environment. That's what virtual desktop was really designed for. And virtual desktop actually, historically, I think most of you would agree, has been costly, time-consuming, and has limitations. So when you look at virtual desktop, we think that's probably too complex to mobilize most of your apps. We think what you can really do is you can really give people access to their physical desktop, and you haven't had to provide a virtual desktop environment, or you can give people access directly to the application remotely. So when you think about remote application and remote desktop rendering, what we're really saying, what I'd like you to think about is, maybe I didn't think about this before, but now think this is an excellent way to provide an application to all these different mobile form factors without any waiting, because you don't have to recode anything. There's really no waiting because you don't have to retrain your users, and it's a very, very secure environment. So you get business agility with this, you get a fast ROI, you get full compatibility. Your users are absolutely used to using the application, and they get to use it in the very same way, and you get zero data leakage, and it's highly secure.
All right, let's get folks involved here again. As you think about the apps that you use on your desktop, in the back office, what are the categories or category of applications that you would want to mobilize? Stuff that you're using that you'd like to have access to from your mobile device, but today you don't yet have access to. Got a few different categories here. They're pretty broad, but let's take a stab at it. Office productivity, web apps, whether they're .NET, Java, Silverlight, ActiveX, etc., and then 3D CAD CAM, big category of apps that usually require a fair amount of processing horsepower and contiguous RAM that may not ever make it to mobile, but you still might want to have access to that while you're out in the field with your tablet. So I could see that being a neat category. And of course, all the classic back office, BI, CRM, ERP, order processing type systems, or perhaps none of the above. It's multiple choice, so feel free to select more than one category. Always interesting to see where folks are headed. Jeff, I imagine you probably asked this question more than a couple times. What's your guess on what we're going to see?
I'm going to go for office productivity.
Office productivity.
We're all voting there. But while we're waiting, maybe I'll tell you, a couple fun examples of the way people use remote rendering to get access to these applications. We've got one customer, I think you'll find this entertaining, who lets their school bus drivers take iPads, and they come in the morning and they get on their iPad, they get in the school bus, and they find their route for the day from their iPad. So you can imagine we've got this wide range of school bus drivers who've now been provisioned with iPads. They now get their most efficient route for the day, and that's the way they work, right?
And this is accessing an application that already existed, but before they had to go into the building, get on a desktop computer.
Yep, exactly. Or they were going to have to carry a laptop around that had a Windows interface on it.
Right. Okay, about 15 seconds left, and we'll show the results. Again, trying to get a feel for what categories of applications you and your organization would like to make available to your users. All right, let's see what the results are here. So, Jeff, I'm glad I didn't bet you.
We're all right.
Office productivity wins, but certainly some of the other categories clearly have interest there.
You can see even with CRM and ERP and order processing, you think of these as coming from large independent software vendors. And even though those are coming from the very largest of our independent software vendors, there are parts of them that haven't been mobilized, and people tend to use those parts in different areas, and they use our technology to mobilize those parts of those applications.
Well, and given that there's just millions and millions of lines of code that exist and are working and have been tested, I could see this being a great way to not have to redo anything and be able to get access to the system that is reliable and how it works.
Yep, exactly. So let's look at the architecture real quickly here. In the bottom left-hand side, we're showing you a tablet, and it's got the Splashtop for Good application on it. It's been integrated with the Good Dynamics SDK, and all the traffic is going to go through the Good NOC. And so it's all a highly secure environment. And on-premise, you can see on this screen that we also have Splashtop Center. So this is an on-premise product. We're going to provide you a piece of software that you're going to put on a Windows Server or Windows 7 and Windows 8 environment. You're going to install that within your enterprise. The next thing you'll notice is that this piece of software can also integrate with Active Directory. So it's going to be your management interface. It's going to be your relay. It's going to be the thing that integrates with Active Directory. Now, this is the way that you can authorize users. You can decide which users can actually have remote access. You can even decide which devices, according to their MAC address, have remote access. And through Splashtop Center, your users on your iPad or your Android device can get access to their physical desktops or maybe even 3D workstations. We also have an additional set of functionality that we call SplashApp. And with SplashApp, you can not only get access directly to your physical desktops, you can get access directly to an application, a remote app function. And this is done using the RDP protocol, getting access to Windows servers, for example, Windows servers 2003, 2008, 2012, running the terminal services or RDS function. And so we remote directly to the application that way. And to be complete, we can also use the RDP protocol to get access to other servers where you don't want to, you just want to use the RDP interface, so you don't have to put an agent on them, or get access to virtual machines that are available to you via the RDP protocol. One of the reasons why people love Splashtop is because it's really high performance. When you talk about the user's experience, the first thing that comes up is I don't want to see any latency, I don't want to see any pixelization, I want to see a clear image of what's happening. And Splashtop from the early days was designed for remote application access, and one of the first things you've got to do is make sure you've got the best performance you possibly can. We integrated with the graphics chip manufacturing technology so that we can provide you with the lowest latency and the fastest frame rates. In addition to that, now just think about the fact that you're typically on a touch device. You're on a tablet or an iPhone. It was designed for touch. It wasn't designed for a mouse and keyboard. So one of the major parts of the user interface experience is that we give people the ability to easily manipulate the touch interface gestures so that they can do what they expect to happen on the application that was designed for a mouse and a keyboard. In addition to that, we enhance the user experience because we also provide whiteboarding and annotation. So if you want to draw circles around something and highlight and take snapshots, you can do that with the whiteboarding and annotation. And finally, we have shortcuts and overlays. Many of these applications have maybe little buttons or things that you need to tap on, and if you have a fat finger like John does, not like I do, but it's hard to pick out the little place you're supposed to tap on the screen. And with shortcuts and overlays, we give you the ability to put things like a joystick or buttons or scroll bars as a transparent interface right on top of the application to make it extremely easy for your users to use the application on a touch device that was designed for a mouse and a keyboard.
Let's go ahead and just get...
So let me introduce Steve Rokoff here. We don't want to forget to do that. Steve's our Vice President of Product Marketing. He's going to walk you through a quick demo.
So just launched the Splashtop for Good app and immediately presented with a security screen where I need to enter my password, which I'll go ahead and do. Now, this is going to authenticate me to the Good network, and now I'm into Splashtop. So this is the initial login screen. Rather than connect to my own desktop, what I'll do is actually use our online demo environment. Now, this is a set of Splashtop servers that are hosted on Amazon, so you can try this yourself. And we have there both a full desktop experience as well as individual applications. You can see them here. A variety of office productivity as well as a CAD application if that's your desire. Let's just go ahead and just demonstrate the full desktop. So what's happening here, if you remember that diagram Jeff presented, is Splashtop Center Server connecting with RDS using SplashApp technology, which is now launching a virtual Windows 7 desktop, which will now appear in my iPad. There you go. And so any applications, whether they're commercial, off-the-shelf, customized, web applications, thick client, thin client, are now available to me in that Windows environment that I can now be using directly from my iPad. So we're mostly familiar with PowerPoint, I'm sure. So let me go ahead and just click on a deck that I have prepared, a Splashtop deck. And so you can see the user experience here as if I were sitting in front of my desktop. Builds work, embedded videos work. That's very different to some mobile apps where a lot of those animations and builds don't work, and so you have to adjust your workflow accordingly. Jeff mentioned one of our unique user features, customizable shortcuts. And so what I'll do is just take the opportunity of showing that to you. Here we have our control bar from which I can select that function as well as other functions, things like switching monitors, changing from sharp to smooth mode. So when I select customizable shortcuts, you'll see a set of transparent icons that get overlaid over what I'm viewing. And now these icons represent specific functions within the application. So an example, open a folder, save a file. Now as I'm working in PowerPoint, you see here a set of profiles that pop up at the top. The second one along there is the PowerPoint profile. And so when I select that, you'll immediately see that the icons actually change. So now they represent different functions that are more appropriate for this particular application. And just a note on these icons are all fully editable inside each of those profiles. You can create your own profiles. You can edit the ones that we have default in the product as well, so fully customizable. And of course, these icons now are standard ones within a slideshow, move forward, back, stop the slideshow, restart the slideshow, pick up a pen, highlight something on the text for your audience. And all of these profiles, remember, are available at the top. And so if I were in a different application, I could choose a different profile and overlay with different icons. I could also hide those icons if they may be obscuring something on the desktop, or if I didn't want to do that, I could just change their transparency. So here on the top right, that gear icon, I can now choose a slide bar and adjust the transparency. So very flexible, a great way of just increasing the touch experience for the user in specific applications. Let me get out of PowerPoint here and just show you something else real quick. And so now I'll click on the browser icon there, the IE icon on the taskbar, and just show you what that browser experience is like. So this is now IE on my iPad. So this is the Splashtop site, and I could just navigate around. We have a section that's dedicated to videos of how Splashtop is used. There's that link there, with a variety of different business applications. So the ones that we have recorded, there's Splashtop being used with a CAD application with the joystick control, which allows you to move around, a healthcare application, how Flash would render using PowerPoint, which we just did, what a .NET application might look like, or even logging into a Citrix Receiver desktop. Let me go back to the healthcare application, which is Patient Now, and just fast forward to the more interesting bit. So you can imagine this is a physician in front of a patient in the front office, just looking at a variety of confidential records, maybe their x-rays or CT scans, and this is being streamed from the back office computer in a secure manner. In fact, we prohibit the use of cut and paste and even remote print as well. So true zero data leakage. So there you go, that's Splashtop being used with a variety of different applications. Of course, please go ahead and download the Splashtop for Good app from the App Store and try out our online demo yourself. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Steve. All right, Jeff, let's finish up here and get to some Q&A.
Just thought I'd give you a little background on Splashtop. We really came out of the consumer space, and as we came out of the consumer space, we were highly successful in that area. We have over 14 million users in the consumer space. We are the top 25 best-selling iPad apps of all time for Apple. We're the top new paid application for Google Play and the top-selling Kindle Fire app, the top-selling Nook app. We're the top Windows Remote Desktop app. A lot of tops here. And the #1 best-selling Playbook app. So really, in addition to that, we also have many, many device manufacturers that are providing Splashtop as they ship their devices. And over 62% of Fortune 100 companies have employees that are already using Splashtop. So this is not with our enterprise product. This is they're actually using our consumer product, but we know that they're gaining access to their applications within these Fortune 500 companies or Fortune 100 companies. Let's look at a little case study real quickly, and we're almost done. This is a large aerospace manufacturing company, and what are they using Splashtop for Good for? They've got some IT executives that are accessing their notebooks and desktops for productivity applications as they travel around the world. They don't have to take their laptops with them anymore. They use it in their IT organization to provide 24/7 IT support, and then importantly, they're delivering additional applications to the manufacturing floor. So on the left-hand side, you see that they have an SAP application. They're actually using the manufacturing execution system part of SAP. So that must be, obviously, one of the parts of the SAP application that has not been mobilized, not provided on an iPad, and they're letting their manufacturing employees give their manufacturing employees iPads so they have access to that application. In addition, we have many app manufacturers, including this, that use remote rendering technology. They use this 3D viewer for JT, and that really runs on a Windows platform, but they want access to it on the same iPad. And so in this company, they're using Splashtop for access to both SAP and using the 3D viewer for JT.
Some great examples. So some closing thoughts. We would encourage you to develop a mobility strategy using a platform, because the platform allows you to really address the use cases that you're going to find as you start to think about deploying mobility across the entirety of the enterprise rather than an isolated group. We want to secure the apps and the data rather than just the device to achieve the greatest amount of protection for your corporate information assets. And of course, Splashtop rendering really completes the portfolio because, as Jeff had articulated, being able to get access to the apps that people already know how to use, that your business has already invested in, is truly critical. And Splashtop really completes the picture, if you will. Of course, the nice thing about Splashtop is you can mobilize your apps in days. The speed with which you can deliver that kind of productivity to your users is truly staggering, both from the initial setup perspective as well as just being able to roll out a brand new app. So we would like to take some Q&A. We reserved some time here at the end. We've got Jeff, myself, and Steve here as well. So let's look at a few questions here. So the first question is, where can I go to try Splashtop? That's always a great question. Jeff?
Steve, you can go to the Good website, and on the Good website there's the Splashtop option, and you can request a trial. You can also go to the Splashtop website and go to our partner section that has Good in there and request a trial that way as well.
Yeah, in fact, the URL on the lower left of your screen, splashtop.com/good, whole page talking about the solution. And on the lower right of that page, there's a sign up there where you can get your free trial. So I would encourage you to absolutely look at that.
Yeah, I might mention one other thing. You can just go and get the Splashtop for Good client, and you can download that from the App Store, and it has a Try Instant Demo in it. And you can just click on that Try Instant Demo, and you can see a lot of the infrastructure that Steve showed you in the demo.
We've got a great question here for you guys. This confused me initially at first. The question is pretty straightforward. What software do I need to install on the actual, let's call it an iPad? What software do I have to install on the iPad itself?
You install a client. So you have to go to the App Store and you download the Splashtop for Good client.
Okay.
And you just put that on your iPad or you put that on your iPhone. And shortly we'll have the Android version. You go to the Google Play Store, you put that on your...
But once I've installed that client, that's all I ever need, regardless of how many apps my company makes available to me.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, great. One other question that comes in, and again, you talked about this a little bit, but people want to understand, what's the difference between remote desktop and app rendering versus virtualization?
Oh, that's a great question. So when you think about the history of virtualization, I did this a little earlier, what people were really talking about was spinning up a virtual desktop. And they're really running those desktops in virtual environments, and then they have some client to get access to the virtual desktop. That kind of infrastructure has turned out to be expensive. I'm not going to say that not in all cases you don't want to use it. It still has a valuable place in our situation, but you don't have to spin up virtual desktops in order to remotely render and get access directly to an application. You can just say, I'm going to have my customers or my users get access directly to their desktops, in which case you don't have to spin up a virtual desktop. You're just getting physical access that gives them access to the application. It's kind of like going through your desktop to get to the app. Or you can use the Microsoft RDS function to take the applications and have them run in the RDS function, and we can give access from Splashtop clients directly to the app running in the RDS environment. And again, you haven't had to spin up a virtual desktop. That doesn't preclude you from spinning up virtual desktops. You can still do that, but that tends to be the most expensive, complex way to do something, and so you can do it the other ways much more easily.
So here's a question near and dear to my heart, and apparently this person was at the same company I was at. They're asking about how long it takes for, let's say IT decided to go out and try Splashtop out. How long would it take to actually deploy the necessary server and make Splashtop start actually being productive?
Probably just in less than an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, so really what you can do if everything goes smoothly, which we hope it always does, you download a piece of software that is Splashtop Center. You're going to put it on a server on a Windows 7 or Windows 8 device in your enterprise, right? And the simplest way to get started is you do that. I probably wouldn't do the Active Directory integration right away. I just have it running on my, if I'm the IT guy, maybe right on my desktop. I go ahead and find some other desktop that I'd like to remote to, and I'd install what we call the streamer, which is kind of like the agent, and then I'd go over to my iPad and I'd go to the Apple Store and put the Splashtop for Good client, and then I register by using the same credentials on both the streamer and the application, and I'm up and running.
This is a wildly different experience than really rolling out virtualization across the enterprise, where IT's got weeks of deployment and testing, and of course, in addition, if you've already got a good infrastructure, you can make the Splashtop app just part of your enterprise app store. And so, like any other mobile app, easy to deploy, easy to make it available to your folks.
And in addition to that, you don't have to punch any additional holes in the firewall because all the traffic's going through the good NOC, through the good proxy to Splashtop.
All right, well, let's ask the $64,000 question. How is it priced and licensed?
It's priced by device.
What about smart cards? Are there support for smart card logins at this point? Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
But people have told us that you guys have smart card, right?
Yep.
And so as long as it sort of obviates the need for a smart card support by Splashtop, because actually using the Good Dynamics infrastructure to get access to the Splashtop app.
Yeah, so developers can take advantage of the Good Vault, Good Trust functionality that's part of the Secure Mobility platform, and I'd encourage you to reach out to Good to learn more about that if second factor authentication solutions are of interest. Here's a question for you about Splashtop and how it compares to Citrix XenApp.
Yeah, awesome question. That's what we're really looking at is Splashtop is remote rendering technology that was specifically designed to remote to desktops and to applications so that you can mobilize your applications easily. It's a simple set of infrastructure. It's so much simpler than XenApp. It's less expensive than XenApp, and we believe provides a far better user experience, not only just because of performance, but performance and annotation and configurable shortcuts that allows you to create a highly usable user interface for your users to get to their remote applications.
Somebody just wrote this in, and it makes a lot of sense. I asked you what software you have to install on your iPad. What I didn't ask you is the other side of the equation. What do I have to install on my desktop computer to get access to the apps that are there?
Yeah, you need, without RDP, I'll talk about RDP second, but without RDP, you put a Splashtop client, the Splashtop for Good client, on your iPad or on your iPhone or on your Android, and you put what we call a streamer on the target device. So on your PC or on your Mac, you put a streamer. So those are the two things that talk to each other, and they talk to each other through Splashtop Center. If you are using the RDP function that we call Splash App, then you no longer need to put the Splashtop streamer on your PC. You can just directly remote to that PC using the RDP protocol. And obviously, if you're remoting to a Windows server in the RDS environment, then there's no Splashtop technology that you install on the Windows server. It just the Splashtop Center connects directly to the Windows server.
You mentioned something in passing, and I just want to point it out because I think it's really important. Obviously, most enterprises have been historically pretty heavy on the Windows operating system, but you mentioned you can provide access to Mac OS X applications.
Yes, exactly. So if you think about the target device can be a Windows machine, it could be a Mac machine, or obviously it could be any of these applications running on
So Mac OS X, Windows, servers, you have the RDP capabilities. I mean, really, all of the tools that are in play in the enterprise, Splashtop can bring down to the mobile device.
Exactly.
Excellent.
And think about it. You're actually using Splashtop to be the delivery mechanism, and so you don't have to worry about new device types, new form factors. Splashtop, with its remote rendering, will take care of any changes in device types and form factors. So it's a long-term solution. It enables you to get a quick hit on applications that you haven't been thinking you were able to mobilize, and you're not going to have to change it for a long period of time.
All right. We've got a couple last questions here before we run out of time. This should be an easy one. When people are accessing their email via your client, so let's assume someone's got Outlook and they're accessing it via their tablet, would they be able to see things like their email and contacts as well? I would assume you get access to everything in the app, right?
Everything. We just pretend you're just sitting in front of your PC.
Yeah, because the apps don't change. Everything that the app makes available, you have access to.
Everything. You're just on a tablet, and you're doing everything as though you were sitting in front of your PC with a mouse and a keyboard. You're not limited in any way.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, last question here. Deborah asks, how do you track your mobile devices and know when devices check in and are in use? I mentioned analytics earlier, and this is a classic example of where app analytics can really provide visibility. Using the Good Dynamics platform, the enterprise can be aware of not only who downloaded what application to what device and what operating system the device has, etc., but you also can know how often that app is launched, how much time that app is actually used by your users. So there's a pretty rich set of analytics that are available to you. Again, I'd encourage you to reach out to your Good rep or go to the good.com website to learn more. So Jeff, Steve, I want to thank you both very much for joining us here today. Learned a lot about Splashtop and really super impressive both about how fast I can get access to the apps I've already invested in. It sounds like a really cost-effective, quick way to extend mobility out to my users.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John. Additionally, we'd like to thank all of you very much for joining us today and giving us your valuable time. We really appreciate it. Keep an eye out for an email from us within the next few days, and within that email we'll direct you to a PDF and a recording of this presentation that we encourage you to share with your colleagues. To learn more about Splashtop and get a free trial, visit www.splashtop.com/good. And for more information about the Good Dynamics Secure Mobility Platform, please visit us on our website at www.good.com. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.